South Bronx demands respect. Boycott Fresh Direct. South Bronx demands respect. Boycott Fresh Direct. South Bronx demands respect. Boycott Fresh Direct.
So thank you very much, everyone, for coming today. I'm Harry with South Bronx Unite Coalition with our legal team from New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, and we're here at the appellate court today to appeal the decision from the state Supreme Court that has denied our court hearing to stop the subsidies to Fresh Direct and the relocation to our neighborhood without an appropriate environmental impact statement. So today we'll hear from a number of local residents as well as our legal team from New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. And the first person I will introduce is Ruben Austria, a local pastor and homeowner in the Mott Haven neighborhood of the South Bronx.
All right, Ruben. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Reverend Ruben Austria, and I am a resident of East 138th Street in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx, also a member of the Bronx Clergy Roundtable, and I live just a few blocks from the proposed Fresh Direct site. And we're here today to bear witness to the process of legal justice in this case. But make no mistake, we're not here to find out whether our claim is just. We're not here because we need the court to validate whether this decision is unjust. When a company that receives $130 million in public subsidies but lobbies to avoid paying a living wage, we know that that is injustice. When the city and state permit 1,000 diesel truck trips to come through a neighborhood that's already suffering from an asthma epidemic without an environmental review, we know that that is injustice. When our elected officials meet behind closed doors, when community boards change the times of their meeting and kick off dissenting members to avoid public scrutiny, we know that is injustice. When the company that received a lease to develop this land for the very purpose of reducing truck traffic for the community collects $66 million in rent while paying only $5 million in rent over 20 years, getting a private benefit for what was supposed to be a public community benefit project, we know that that is injustice. And when we can't take our own children by the hand, take them down to the river to see the water and breathe fresh air, when we can't do that without dodging trucks or being confronted by private security guards, that is injustice. So make no mistake, we've come to bear witness to the courts of earthly justice today, but we know that true justice has already been heard. The God of the Bible says, I, the Lord, love justice. He says, I hate injustice. And we know that in the heavenly courts, our cry has already been heard. And so we look forward to seeing what these earthly courts will do today to hear our cause. Thank you.
Next up is Christina Giorgio from New York Lawyers for the Public Interest with a round of applause.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christina Giorgio, and I'm an attorney with the Environmental Justice Group at New York Lawyers for the Public Interest. And in February of 2012, when the community members of the South Bronx came to our office concerned about a proposed move of Fresh Direct from Long Island City to their waterfront in the South Bronx, we saw a classic case of environmental injustice. You had a city agency who prepared a very sloppy and inadequate environmental review for a massive trucking operation to be sited at the waterfront of the South Bronx, a community already reeling and struggling with asthma 8 times the national average, and with no means, no financial means to legally challenge it. That's where New York Lawyers for the Public Interest steps in. At New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, we believe that if you are born into a community that is poor and a community of color, that should not mean that you spend your life struggling with asthma because you are surrounded with polluting facilities. It should not mean that you have no access to your waterfront, where you should not be able to walk with your child to the river. We believe that it should not mean that you are excluded from prosperity or sustaining jobs. And yet, over the last 20 years, as New York and Manhattan has become richer and richer, and its waterfronts have become restored to sites of recreation and commerce, the South Bronx and its waterfront has been hijacked to site the polluting facilities of Manhattan, whether it be to provide power to Manhattan, whether it be to process their garbage. That has been the siting of the waterfront of the South Bronx. And now they seek to give $130 million of our money to move the food processing to the waterfront of the South Bronx in the name of Fresh Direct, the online grocer that basically caters to the exclusively wealthy Manhattanites and some folks in Brooklyn. So, we have been extremely honored to represent the community of the South Bronx because this is profoundly unjust and made more unjust by the fact that they have failed to comply with the law. We are pleased to fight this community and this coalition to demand environmental justice and compliance with state law concerning adequate review. State environmental laws require a much more robust review than was given to this community. Environmental laws require a review that gives the community an opportunity to learn of the full environmental impacts and also an opportunity to study the alternatives. That was denied to this community. And we are in good company in finding fault with the environmental review that was done in this instance because NRDC, Natural Resources Defense Council, the country's premier environmental advocacy group, has filed a brief, friend of the court brief in support of our position. So we know the law and the facts are on our side, and NILPI and South Bronx Unite and the entire South Bronx community very much looks forward to our opportunity to make our case before the esteemed justices of the Appellate Division today. Thank you.
Next up is Libertad Gira, an artist, a mother, and homeowner in the immediate area.
So we neighbors and residents are not here to complain with bitterness, but to express our positive vision of our beloved South Bronx future. A new vision of what's to come requires different practices, more inclusiveness, and basic respect for the working class neighborhoods of the city who constantly suffer the consequences of policies based on environmental discrimination. We hope that the court can recognize that. The citizens and taxpayers of Mott Haven in the South Bronx are aware and will not stand to keep on being the dumping grounds of the whole of New York City. We have an amazing waterfront with no single access point to it. We locals know of a much smarter future, much different from the subsidy schemes in exchange for basic few non-living wage jobs that are not even guaranteed most of the time. That's what South Bronx Unite, with the amazing help of NILPI, has been doing for almost 2 years now, fighting for equal treatment to get a basic environmental review of the area and for community inclusiveness in the decision-making process. Claiming our rights to clean air, open spaces, jobs, and prosperity that do not rely on backroom deals to favor a corporation at the expense of damaging the residents of the most burdened communities. That will not end with a judge's decision. We are not simply fending off Fresh Direct here, by the way. We are struggling for a positive and large vision of our neighborhood, health, environmental, and economic future that we cannot keep on being exploited, okay? So the vision has brought together over 50 community-based organizations to speak out against this project. The judges today can make our struggle a bit easier or a bit harder, but ultimately the result will be the same. Green justice, a safer waterfront, self-respect, and community empowerment for the South Bronx and Mott Haven. Thanks.
Next up, from the government watchdog group that monitors these kind of horrible subsidies, is Bettina Damani from Good Jobs New York.
Good afternoon. I direct Good Jobs New York, and we keep track of how the city allocates economic development subsidies. So I can tell you for a fact, we know how bad the proposed deal to Fresh Direct is. It's so bad that it would be one of the largest subsidy proposals under the Bloomberg administration that has had zero community input. Why would the city invest money to move a company within the city? It makes absolutely no sense when it comes to a public investment perspective. When they talk about the jobs that would be associated with this project, the Bloomberg administration on occasion has done a decent job of leveraging subsidies for jobs at certain projects. They have not done that with Fresh Direct. Do not believe the city when they say that the subsidies that they are giving to Fresh Direct, they want to give to Fresh Direct, would create even one job for poor people in the Bronx. This is not a wise investment. It is so unwise that even Mayor-elect Bill de Blasio has highlighted how ineffective subsidy policies like ones to Fresh Direct are. And today is the day, not only in New York but around the country, people are raising their voices to say giving subsidies to companies like Fresh Direct is not the way to improve our communities. We have to raise our wages and engage the community more. That's how we invest our public resources effectively, not by giving corporate giveaways to those like Fresh Direct. Thank you.
And finally, we have another local homeowner, a father and former Community Board 1 member, Michael Johnson.
Well, thank you all. I mean, I'm wrapping it up, but I just want to say thank you all for coming today. It shows the unity of our neighborhood. And what we're here fighting for is a basic necessity, the right to breathe. And it's a shame that the South Bronx, that our community has to fight to breathe, to have clean air. I mean, you can shade it any kind of way you want, but ultimately our fight is to breathe. For our children to have a quality of life so we can have a better place to live and not have to have trucks going around through our community, infringing on our ability to live a healthy life. You know, we live in the richest country on the planet. We live in the richest city in the United States. But we are the poorest congressional district in the United States of America, and it's ridiculous to see how that spread, that parity of equality or economic equality and environmental equality does not rest in the South Bronx. And why is it? We're here fighting for it today. I'm glad you all are here fighting with us, and we're going to continue to fight. We're going to show the judge in here that we are together. We're coming together in peace, but we want to make sure that everybody in the city knows that the South Bronx is not taking it no more. We're not standing for the dumping no more. We're not standing for the trucks, the garbage, and all the traffic. Our children are sick, our seniors are dying. We need to fight and stay together. Thank you all for coming.